Hello, everyone. Welcome to an exciting new journey. The challenges that immigrants go through, no one understands them fully. I realized a little while ago that my son would never understand what we truly went through. So, I want to do something to chronicle the different paths we take. We're going to be talking to different people from different cultures, and the only thing they have in common is that they've left their homelands to work in the NHS. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of the IMG UK podcast. I'm the host, Asadullah Anis Khan, and I've got Dr. Raja Adnan Ahmed with me. He's a consultant psychiatrist working in Wales, and he has a YouTube channel for guidance of IMGs, early career guidance. He's got a very special interest in medical education and also in the problems faced by international medical graduates when they move to the UK. And he's done a lot of work on that on social media and otherwise, meeting with international medical graduates and having sessions to guide them, whether it's for psychiatry or otherwise. I'm honored to have him on with me today, and I am also grateful for his support, because when I was thinking about the idea for this podcast, he was one of the people who really encouraged me and pushed me to get this started. So I'm really happy to do this episode today. So, Assalamu alaikum. How are you doing?
Walaikum salam, Asad, and thank you very much for inviting me. And I think, as you said, I the reason I encourage you or push you to do this, because I think this is a great idea. Because I believe every IMG has a very special story, and it is very important that we share the stories, because then some younger generation might listen to those and feel they can follow our journey or learn something from that or get some inspiration from it. So I think it's very important that we are open and honest about our struggles, our anxieties, our successes, our failures. So I think this is a very good job that you started a podcast where we can openly talk about these things.
Thank you. And one of the other things that this episode serves to highlight is, just like Mujtaba in the first episode, Adnan Bhai is going to be helping me host the podcast as well, and I think it's too difficult to do on my own, so that's going to be a big help. So everyone's probably familiar with the questions I normally ask people on the podcast, but I think it's time to change things up a little bit, because it needs to be individualized to the person whose story we're sharing. And as with every episode, this episode also has a name, and the name is Hyderabad, and we will let Adnan Bhai tell us about what that means. Just to highlight, we said Assalamu alaikum to each other. For those of you who don't know what that means, it's an Islamic greeting that Muslims say to each other. You may hear your colleagues say this in the workplace. It just means peace be upon you. So it's a very beautiful greeting. So Adnan Bhai, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about your city?
I actually grew up in a city. I was born in Hyderabad, and whenever you mention the name Hyderabad, you have to really tell people that this is Hyderabad in Pakistan, because there is a more famous and bigger Hyderabad in India, and people get confused. A lot of people from India I met, they didn't actually have an idea that Pakistan got their own Hyderabad as well. So first you need to mention that, because I actually know somebody who actually ended up buying a wrong plane ticket, because they thought they were going to Hyderabad in Pakistan, when actually the ticket was from Indian Hyderabad. So it can get confusing, because when the name is exactly the same. So I actually was born in Hyderabad. My mother was from that area, but then I grew up in Pas, which is actually further away from Hyderabad, more deep in Sindh, in the lower Sindh. Mir was a beautiful little town, and it was surrounded. It was famous for its mangoes and surrounded by some mango farms. So I had a very good upbringing in the way. Physically, we used to be very active, not like the current generation, which is completely hooked on the screens. We used to go out and play every day. Played a lot of sports. Growing up, have a lot of fun. Made a lot of friends in my neighborhood, in my school. And the things we used to do then, like nowadays we consider them as very healthy. Like, for example, cycling. I used to go to school on a bicycle. From all my secondary school, all my college days, I've always used a cycle to go to commute in the small city. Then going out and playing, I think that is a very good memory. And when you were growing up in a city which is surrounded by all these beautiful mango trees and mango farms, going around there, climbing the mango trees sometimes, eating the mangoes in the mango season, and those memories are, they're just implanted in your brain. So then Hyderabad basically came into my life more properly, because we used to obviously go to Hyderabad. We have relatives, uncles and aunties living there. Go to Hyderabad quite regularly, frequently. But when I actually went to the medical college, which was the Lackett Medical University, now called used to be called Lackett Medical College, that was in Jamshoro, and that was Jamshoro is basically uh, near Hyderabad, very kind of attached to Hyderabad. So that is when I actually moved to Hyderabad. And then my family also moved to Hyderabad as well around that time, and we made a house there. So you can say my first 18 years, 17, 18 years of my life was in Miprakash, and then the medical college time and the house job time that was spent in Hyderabad, and then I finally moved to UK after that.
What's the most famous thing about Hyderabad? Apart
So
from you, of
Hyderabad,
course.
I think Hyderabad was famous for a lot of things. We were famous for the things I remember, which I must say that the food was amazing. I mean, everybody would say their food in their city was amazing, but maybe we just grew up with those taste buds. That's why we think this is only amazing. I'm pretty sure people from Lahore would say the same. People from Rawalpindi, Islamabad would say the same. But the kind of food we used to have in Hyderabad, that was amazing. Uh, uh, not just not just the proper restaurants. I'm talking about the street food we used to get, like the halim and the biryani and the chicken kadai and a lot of other stuff. Bombay Bakery was another famous thing from Hyderabad, which was actually a small bakery run by a family, and they make cakes, very amazing cakes, and they only make the cakes in a very small numbers, and you have to really go there and queue outside that bakery to get that cake. And that is something that was very famous from Hyderabad. Whenever you used to go to Karachi or other cities, people would say, "Can you bring me Bombay Bakery cake?" Because that was really famous.
I can see from the smile on your face that that memory just evokes certain emotions in you, that's beautiful. I think that's what our hometowns do to us. So I'm going to change the order a little bit. Actually, what do you miss the most about Hyderabad?
I mean, obviously, the thing you miss from your town is, the first thing you miss is your family. Is obviously, you when you move to UK, you move to another country, you leave your support system behind. Most important, your family, your relative, your cousins, your brothers, sisters, your parents, most importantly. And then you had made a lot of friends, the whole social cycle you missed back then. And I think that is something that you miss really, really severely initially when you first, especially when you first move. And then the other thing, Hyderabad had a very good weather in comparison to other cities of Pakistan. I think that first something we used to miss, because we never had, the winters were not that harsh, and summer were not actually that hot if you are comparing it to Lahore and Multan and other places in Pakistan, which used to get really, really hot. The evenings of Hyderabad was very famous for being cold, and the nice breeze used to come from the seaside. Um, and then obviously you miss, you have, when you grow up in a city, or you spend your adulthood in a city, you miss that initial time we used to have, so much free time in the medical college we used to have. And I used to have a motorbike, and then going around the city, meeting my friends, going and eating out with my friends, hanging out in all those dhabas, having cup of teas in the middle of the night, and having those chat and those laughs, and that sort of thing. You almost like feel like, I wish I can go back there one day and have a day like that again. And that is something, you will always miss. And things have moved on. The city itself look quite different now. The memory I had was that we didn't have that much traffic, because I was very uh, not so used to driving in traffic. And when I was growing up, I don't remember Hyderabad getting any traffic jams or any major traffic problems. But obviously, things have now changed. People have, the population is much more now, um, and those friends have got busy as well. So you don't get to do the exact same things we used to enjoy before.
everyone's got their responsibilities, and what we would give to have a day without those responsibilities.
Yeah.
So why did you decide to move to the UK?
I think there were several reasons, and sometimes I reflect back and think, what was I thinking as a young man at that time? What was the real thing I was looking for? I think if you have asked me to grade those reasons, the first one would probably be the financial aspect, because when I was growing up, and I was looking at the my seniors there. When you're in a medical school, you go to the wards and you meet your senior doctors and the senior PGs, which we should call them, the postgraduate trainees, and the registrars and all those. And psychologically you're thinking that I will become a house officer and I'll be becoming them in a few years' time. And I used to see that they were struggling, despite the fact that they, even if they were getting a good training, if they were with a good supervisor, financially they were still struggling, and they were finding it difficult to have a good life. Only people who had good background from their family support, so if their family were rich or their family were able to support them financially, they were having a good life. But for on your own, you were on a junior doctor's salary, it was very difficult to have a good life. So I was from a middle class family, and I started thinking, if I need to have a comfortable life and not worry about finances constantly, then I need to think about moving out abroad. That was one of the reasons. And then the other reason I must say that was about the training structure and the training, because we were, I don't know if it was the right impression or not, but at that time we were under the impression that the UK has a much better training system, and the training is much more organized. And that was something that was actually very important to me, that when I am training, the initial years of my life, when a doctor is actually building upon their confidence, building upon their basic skills, it was important for me to work in a training system where I can learn a lot of things and develop myself as a good doctor.
It's incredibly important, isn't it?
Yeah.
As you just said, I was actually I was driving back home today from work, and I was stuck, as you are, on the M25, which is just a daily struggle for everyone living around London. But I was really sad actually, because I was speaking to my wife. I called her via the hands free, and we were just talking about. So we're planning to go back to Pakistan just for a trip. We haven't seen our parents in very long, and we just thought that how amazing would it be if you could have the career progression and the financial security with, say, a first world country, and have your parents with you as well. I think that's the one thing that always pops up in my mind when I think about anyone's journey, really. And leading on from that, so the next question would be, what has been your biggest challenge?
I think there was a lot of challenges. I must say that I'll tell you what was my fears or my challenge. I felt at that point it was my challenge, because I was from a very small town in Pakistan. I was from a middle class family. Then I went to a medical school where not many people were actually thinking about going abroad and aspiring to go to UK or US. So for me, when I did my MBA, the one thing I used to ask myself, and I asked myself a lot of times, am I actually good enough to compete with the international doctors? Am I good enough to compete in a system like UK? Is my education good enough? Is my English good enough? Because I came from a atmosphere when up until my final year MBBS, I don't think I used to actually speak English. I knew English. I used to watch English movies. I used to watch English dramas and everything. But I never had the confidence to actually speak English fluently, and there was nobody actually to speak to with in English with actually. So all these things, that actually, will I be able to deal with the language barrier? Would I be actually able to deal with the medical training? Will I be able to understand the system? What will happen? So when I started my PLAB journey, those questions used to actually ruminate in my mind constantly. I am doing PLAB, I'll end up in UK, but would that be a big mistake for me? Will I be able to survive there? Or, you can almost call it
Imposter syndrome?
Imposter syndrome. I was looking for that. That I just felt that, I wasn't really wasn't really ready for that. So that was the overcoming that imposter syndrome, and I thought it took me a long time. Even when I started my job in UK, I used to still think that I just got lucky and I got it here and I got it this. I am not really good enough for this. I got my training, I used to think that I was doing my MRC psych exam. I was thinking this I am not good enough for this. This is some other level stuff.
I'm glad to know I'm not alone then. I think these questions go through all of our minds, don't they? Especially when we're facing a big challenge like exams or a new training post. So I think these questions go through all of our minds, and it's how we deal with it is what determines where we eventually end up. So I think clearly you dealt with that really well. Tell us a little bit about your lovely family.
So I actually, if you go back to my parents, I grew up in a very small family. My father was an advocate; he's passed away now. My mother used to teach. She was a working woman as well, so she used to teach in a local college, and she was working like full time that teaching job. And we were just two brothers. Me and my brother was only a year younger than me, and he also went to the same medical school as me, and he became a surgeon now. He's working in Pakistan. Um, and then obviously I'm married now, not now, but I've been married since 2006. And my wife is a GP, and she's actually from Pakistan, but she did her MBBS from UK, because she came to UK when she was with her family when she was younger, and she graduated from Manchester University, and she is a GP now, a qualified GP since 2013. And then we have three children, which include two daughters and a son. So my older daughter is 12, my son is 10, and my younger daughter is only 3 now.
What are their names?
So my older daughter is called Mizan. Mizan is like an Arabic word from Quran, and it means that it actually literally means weighing scale, but it's sort of a weighing scale which we imagine that our sins and our good deeds will be counted on. My son's name is Ozair, which is again name of a prophet from Bible, and my daughter's name is Minahil, the younger daughter.
Beautiful names, all of them. So the next question is, we've talked about your biggest challenge. We've talked about the difficulties you faced, and then how you dealt with them. What have you learned from migrating to a new place?
I think migrating to a new place is an eye-opening experience, and this is what I discuss with a lot of IMGs. Whenever younger IMGs contact me or they talk about coming to UK, the first thing they ask or the first thing they're concerned about is, what is their salary? What is the training like? And then when you tell them the salary, they'll immediately convert this into their own currency and think, okay, so you're earning this much. So, but what I try and tell them, see, whatever your salary is, this is a completely different universe and different country. The whole economical system and the way you spend money is completely different. You can't directly convert money in your own country's money and think this is much how much you'll be getting. The meaning would be completely different there. But then I also say to them that what I've learned, that coming to a new country is actually entering a completely different universe. So it's not just the language is different, the social norm is different here as well. The sense of humor is different. The way people interact, the family values, the whole system of how things work here is completely different. So you have to learn and adopt to a lot of things, and which is a good thing. I think that's a very good thing, because you got an advantage of living in two different countries, experiencing two different cultures, experiencing two different systems, and you can then pick and choose the good things you have found in one system and then develop on it. And then if you thought that something wasn't as good and it was rather right the other way around, then you can actually build on that as well. So I think that was a challenge which we don't really realize, that when we are moving to a country that we will be facing to live in a different universe. And the other challenge which everybody talks about, the homesickness. I mean, a lot of people say, I used to think that I can't go get homesick because I have already lived away from my home during my first year of medical college, and then during my house job as well. A lot of people think that because they have lived in hostels in their home country, they may be able to deal with this much better. But homesickness is quite significant. When you come here, as I said, you have left a whole support system, a whole network of friends, family behind, and suddenly you have to navigate in this new world, making new friends and facing new challenges, new people every day. So that becomes initially a very big challenge. A lot of people I've seen going through burnout, going through and then not finding support, going through this homesickness and thinking that they just should better just go back, they can't do it anymore.
And this on its own would be enough for anyone to be too much to deal with. Add to that learning a new system. I didn't even know what a drug chart was, the first week I was here. So all of that obviously piles up. It's very important to take it one step at a time and reach out to others who may be going through the same thing. So we're going to jump back now. How was your first day in the UK, your first week in your first month?
So first day was obviously it was very exciting. I mean, I must say that my first coming to UK was my actually first, as far as I remember, it was my first flight. This was the first time I was coming out of the country, and it was the first time I was taking a long flight. And I was absolutely excited. I had a friend whose younger brother was a student here, so he was already living in Ilford area. So he said he'll gonna come and pick me from Heathrow, and I can stay with him for a few days until I had a month or 5 or 6 weeks up until my PLAB 2. So I was the first time, obviously, when we come, it was about doing the PLAB 2 exam. So when I was coming the first day, I said to him, my flight was landing in the evening, late in the evening. I said, I'll come with you. We'll eat, have food, and go and sleep in your house. But the next day, I want to go out and see the city. So I was really excited about seeing the city. I said to my friend, that he said, why don't you take a few days and relax and sort of catch up on your jet lag and all that. I said, no, I'm landing in the evening. I'm having food, sleeping in your house, and then next day we're gonna wake up and buy a day pass of the underground, and then we're just gonna go around in city. And I just named some landmarks to him. I said I'm gonna see the Big Ben, the Tower Bridge, and all of that. And that's what we did, exactly that. And it was a month of February. It was really cold. Luckily, it wasn't raining. It was cold and there was no sun, but we just had a day pass and we just roamed around the city until it was dark. And when it get dark, Westminster is actually more beautiful, with lights and all of that. So we just continue to roam around until we got really tired, and we said, now I need to go back home now.
What about at work? So how was your first day, week, month at work?
So I started in UK after PLAB. I was lucky enough to get a clinical attachment. So you can say clinical attachment was my first sort of experience in UK in an NHS hospital. Then the same place where I was doing a clinical attachment, that was in Newport, city called Newport in Wales, in medicine actually. They actually offered me a locum post there. So that was the first time I actually started working in UK. I think I must say the first time in NHS was very, very confusing. Absolutely confusing. I just thought I am completely lost. When I first stepped on, as you said, the things you see there, the drug chart, the way people clerk, all the forms, all the structure of the MDT, all the way the ward is working, the whole hierarchy is different. The way consultants here are communicating with the juniors and with the other team members. That was something I wasn't sort of expecting, or nobody actually teaches us, how to go about that. So it was a big learning curve. I remember standing in the ward rounds, trying to understand what are they talking about. How do they know this much? And even things like this is a patient on my ward. Where does this patient come from? How did they end up on this ward? Who sent them there? And where are they going to go from there? How are the patients moving within the hospital? So learning and understanding all of that, I was completely, as I said, completely confused initially.
I think that's everyone, isn't it? When we start in the NHS. Is there anything you regret?
Initially, I think my regret would be that I think, and a lot of IMGs do that. I would say this to my IMG junior doctors as well, that we tend to underestimate ourselves. When we first come here and when we get our first job, I don't think we tend to explore that many options. We kind of we have a habit of going for the safer options. I know a lot of IMGs who choose a specialty based on how much visa, how long is the visa I'm going to get with this job, or or some other odd reasons. So we are so feeling insecure about what will happen to my visa. Will I be asked to leave the country if this doesn't get extended, and not going for the opportunities which are in front of us, which our British colleagues are actually going for. So I think biggest regret would be, or biggest advice for my IMG colleagues would be to not to underestimate yourself when you first come here. You need to understand that you are here because you have done all your exams, you have got all the qualification, and you are in the right place. And don't feel that you are below anybody. And don't underestimate yourself. Try and unlock your potential. Try and push your boundaries. Try and do things which you think other people are doing.
Like Maslow's pyramid and self-actualization. That's the one thing
Yeah.
that I try to always imagine, because I think if you've when if, for example, if I think back to my time, my house job in Pakistan, it was just the basics. So if your basic needs aren't met, how do you end up self-actualizing? But if you
Yeah.
are at that point, you need to try and push yourself to get to that point. I've got three more questions for you. Two of them are quicker, and the last one is just the ending one. So the first one is, this is obviously the first episode with an NHS consultant who is an IMG, and there's lots of IMG consultants out there. So what is the one thing you would tell, your IMG consultant colleagues who are already here, and also new IMG consultants?
I think one thing I just keep saying to my IMD consultants whenever I see them in meetings or in these organization, when we have our organizational meeting, like for example, the British Pakistani Psychiatry Association, or Pakistani Association of Physicians, that it is our responsibility to mentor and help the next generation. I think there's a lot of people out there who are asking or looking for information, and they are not getting it through the right means. We need to use our expertise of because we are in this system. We need to use our expertise and give them that knowledge and give them that understanding. The new consultants, I always say to them, when they first start a job, we have, as a doctor, when we are we are training, or even from the start of medical school, we have this finish lines in our brain, that this is the finish line, and this, if I reach this, this is it, this is the pinnacle of my career, and then this is after this I might become a king. So becoming a consultant, getting a CCT, a lot of people think of this as a finish line, as if we were in a race and now we have crossed that. And I always say to them, this becoming a consultant doesn't mean that this is the end of your training, or this is the end of your growing. This is the point. You obviously reach the milestone, but you need to keep going and keep exploring your potential. Keep doing things which you enjoy. Keep doing things which you think will which unlock your potential more. So I think that is one advice I always sort of give my younger consultant colleagues.
That's very, very, very useful advice, and I'll try to keep that in mind for when I eventually become a consultant. Long time to go. Um, One of the questions is actually related to a lot of things. I think that's something we've actually discussed quite a lot. So I've had a lot of advice from you about this, because I'm obviously trying to navigate. Both my wife and I are working, and we've got a little child. So tell us how difficult or how easy. I don't think you'll say easy, but tell us how difficult or easy it was raising your kids here.
This is something nobody tells you when you're growing up, that how difficult it is to raise the children. And I say this in a funny way, that when you have your own child, this is the time, and there's this beautiful time when you actually hold a child, and then you are raising them. Initially, especially the initial time when you have your child, the first few months or few years, you really, that is the time I've seen a lot of people going to their parents and thanking them, thanking in a way, like I went to my mother and said, thank you very much. And I said, I said, I didn't realize this, you had this difficult, I was a very naughty child, and my brother, and you were a working woman, and you have both of us. I can only imagine now that what you went through, and how much sacrifice you have done to actually raise us. So it's like if something strikes you, and suddenly you realize your parents have done so much for you, and you're not just here as an adult. There was so much background, and you only learn it when you have your own child, that what struggles you have to follow and face. The second thing I say, again, in a funny way, people think coming to UK, I said most difficult thing maybe for them is they think doing an postgrad exam, or finding a training post, or getting a CCT. And I say the most difficult thing is to raising children here in this country. So I cannot express how difficult that could get, especially if you are a pair of doctors and both of you are working. finding time for your family, finding time to give that to those children, and then raising them, sitting with them, spending time with them, it becomes like a daily challenge. And unfortunately, because we don't have that good family support here, even if we have brothers and sisters here, even if we have some support here, those people are also busy as well. It's not as we were living in our home country in Pakistan, in the joint family system, and I think we had much better support, and a lot of other systems in place which can help with the child care. Here you are the main child, uh, main carer for your child, and rightly so, because you as a parent, you brought them in this world, you should be doing more. So it is challenging, but I think it is fun as well. At the same time, it is a very fulfilling job. At the end of the day, when your child is growing up and they are coming to you for help and advice, at some, because my daughter is now 12 and 13, I know it's really pleasure. It's a big pleasure to watch a young woman grow and develop in confidence, and see her sort of explore her potential, and do all of that, and you feel very proud of them as well.
That's exactly right. And imagine trying to add on, a podcast series on top of that, with raising a 2-year-old, and both of us working. But you're right. It's the support, and if both of you are unwell at the same time, what do you do? It's all these different hoops that you never thought you'd have to jump through. But the first thing I did after my son was born was go to my mum and my dad and say thank you, and I just had a different appreciation for them that I probably should have had before, but I just didn't, just because I think as human beings we all take things for granted, don't we? So we've talked about your kids a lot. We've talked about how difficult it was raising them. They're going to be listening to this podcast at some point in their lives. What advice would you give them, to the three of them, when they're watching this?
I think, I mean, I don't know if they. The difference is, when we are raising our children, we like to think we know more than them, and we have a lot of knowledge, and we like to give all our wisdom to them and teach them a lot of things which we have seen in our home country, and so, like, trying to tell them that you born in a very privileged country, very privileged position. You don't know how people are living in this world. I when I go to Pakistan, sometimes I take my children to areas where they can actually see the poor people and see how people can also live. But then part of me thinks that's not really relevant to them. Maybe they will never get the same feeling or same understanding, because I actually grew up in that background, and actually saw that growing up, and it's very different for them. So the whole world, the whole scenario is quite different for them. The world, I mean, their language is different, because they're growing up as English as their first language. The whole social system, the support network, the kind of friends they're making there, that is quite different. The whole environment they're facing is quite different. So the challenges they're going to face would be very different. So all I will tell to them, or I don't want.
Imagine they're listening. Imagine they're listening to what you're saying now.
So even they are listening, I tell them all the time anyway. So I want I want them to explore their potential. I want them to understand that as a parent, I'm there to support them as much as I can, and I will always be at their back. But I want them to explore their potential. I want them to do whatever they want to do. I don't want them to get influenced by. I'm not one of those parents, desi parents, who will say to my daughter or my son that you must become doctor. There's nothing else you can do. You must go to university. You must do this. You must do that. I want them to develop skills. I want them to have expertise in music as well as have some expertise in the sports, things they want to explore outside their academic activities. And I want them to explore different things so they can actually find their own passion. And then I want them to follow that passion. I want to, and for more. One thing I always say to them, I mean, they are too young to understand this. And one thing that takes you far in life is your social skills. If you have good social skills, whatever you are, if you are a doctor or engineer, or working in marketing, or working in a shop, your potential to grow is much more. And that is something I try and include in their teaching, or upbringing, that making them more social, making them respect others, making them understand that they need to treat everybody with respect, regardless of who the other person is. And I hope they will grow up with these sort of ideals, and find their own way then in their life later on.
I'm sure they will, and even if they don't, now they have something on YouTube which they can always look back on. um, Last question now, my personal favorite. Adnan bhai, what would you tell yourself if you went back in time to the person and you met that person who was deciding to make that move, go for the plab? What would you tell yourself?
I will say to myself that you see I was full of fears and anxieties and uncertainties. I would never have thought that one day I will become a consultant. As I used to think maybe I'm not good enough to do that. Maybe if I end up in UK, even if I end up UK, if I end up getting a job, I might not be good enough for do the exams and all of that. I'll tell myself to have more confidence in yourself. That you are actually not a dumb person. You're pretty all right. And you can actually do it. Giving myself that confidence, maybe try and elevate some of the anxieties. But then see, the other thing is, with part of me also believe that we are here because of whatever has happened in the past to us. A lot of the times we think, if I go back and maybe I would have had a better, I could change my past time machine and put myself in a better school or a better medical school. But then I won't be this person then. That is the thing. We don't understand that whatever challenges or whatever difficulties we have faced has actually helped to shape this personality. And maybe that was the reason I developed some qualities in me which actually brought me this far. And if I had a more cushy or more posh upbringing, maybe I wouldn't be here. Then maybe my whole mindset would be quite different. So I won't change. I won't change anything that has happened to me in the past, because I think that is all what brought me to this point in life.
And that is the beauty of these stories, because first of all, thank you for being so honest and so vulnerable, because it's not easy to talk about these things, and the fact that you are, it's I really appreciate that. But also for me as a junior doctor, even though we're in different specialties, it's also inspirational, because I've said this multiple times before to many people in real life and also on the podcast. Stories matter and representation matters. Seeing someone like you, say a few years down the line, having done something in their specialty, it's a source of motivation for people, and I'm sure that there's people listening to this who would be thinking the same. So thank you very much. I am all out of questions now. Unless there's anything you'd like to say, we can end the episode.
I think I would just like to say to the IMGs who are thinking and looking at UK, that this is something you should give it a try. A lot of people ask me, should I stay back in my country? Should I come here? I'm so confused. What should I do? The plab dates might take so long. Plab dates take so much money, so much this. I might waste a few years doing plab and all that. And I always say to them, it's always good to explore something new. It's always good to challenge yourself. It's always good to push your boundaries. It's always good to experience another culture, another country. A few years, I can tell you now, a few years here and there doesn't really matter. If I became I became a consultant in 2016, 2015, 16. If I was becoming consultant in 2014, that wouldn't have been a difference. 2 years of my life. I would rather live the same life again when I had a lot of fun, and maybe I wasted a year wandering around here and there, and after my house job I was just having fun and doing nothing. That is much better than adding another year as a consultant. So a year or two here and there wasted, or they're not really wasted. You, as long as you are going on the right track, doing things. I mean, I see a lot of British graduates. I'm pretty sure you must have seen them as well. Different part of their career, they'll take a whole year out, completely out of the education. During the medical school, I've seen people after third year, they just skip the whole fourth year and say that I need a year out to travel the world, and they'll go to different other countries and do odd jobs and things like that. Completely not read medicine at all, and then come back and join their fourth year. I'm sure you must have seen foundation doctors. It was very common for foundation doctors. Foundation jobs is basically the house job in UK. That then when they complete their 2 years after their foundation year, they don't take training. They take a whole year out or 2 years out, and they go to Australia, they go to New Zealand, they go to another country, explore another culture, sometimes do things completely which are not related to medicine, and then they come back to training. So this mindset that we are kind of in a race, and then we need to reach this point as soon as possible, and after that life would be very good. I think the whole fun is in the journey. cherish every moment you're spending in your medical school, because that is something that you will miss very badly. Spending time with your friend in medical school, you will miss really badly. The fun you were going to have in house job back in your home countries, you're going to miss that. Don't sort of spend those days thinking that this is not it. I need something else, something better, something better, and then I'll be happy. Uh, the happiness is right there in your heart, right there in that place where you are right now. Enjoy those moments, enjoy those times. And then when you come to UK, initial challenges, everything would you have to face, but still, the amount of friends I made here, the amount of social interaction I had with different nationalities, I think that was all worth the journey I had to go through.
And it truly opens your mind, doesn't it? Travel, just generally exposure to different people and different cultures, opens your mind. So thank you very much for some beautiful advice there. And I think what you said about happiness being, in the journey, that's very true. And I think I personally I'm trying to tell myself that more and more as I go on. It's about enjoying the little things. It's not about the race. It's not a race. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So you need to preserve your energies. But yeah, I think one of the things that you touched on was about happiness being a choice. And sometimes, given that everything else is okay, you do have to try and make those positive decisions, have a positive mindset even in a bad situation. So I think we're going to end the episode there. Once again, thank you very much for coming on, and it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.